Hello everyone, my name is Bhavna Singh. I am working as an assistant professor at St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management, Gurgaon. This is an online tutorial on software engineering. So let's begin with today's session. Students, this is our lecture number 15 and today we are going to discuss about all these topics of Unit 4. That is, what is structural testing or white box testing? What are the various testing methods that comes under structural testing? Then we'll talk about the advantage, disadvantage of structural testing. And secondly, we'll discuss the functional testing or black box testing and various techniques that are used in functional testing. Now let's discuss the first topic, that is what is a structural testing. This structural testing is also known as the white box testing, glass box testing or clear box testing. We can also call it as a open box testing and path oriented testing. And this structural testing, it is used to test the structure of a program. And the main objective of this testing is not to check all the different input or output conditions, but the intent is to exercise the different programming structures and data structures that are used in the program. That means with this structural testing, we are not concerned with what input we are giving, what output is coming out and how is the processor going on. We are just concerned about that to test the entire structure of the code. And most of the time this structural testing is done by the software developers because they know the entire knowledge of the code, because they have written the programming codes. So this testing, it requires the knowledge of the code. So it is most of the time it is done by the developers, and it provides more of the coverage to the testing. And why this is known as the white box testing? Because this testing is the testing of the entire internal structure, its design, coding of the program. And this type of testing, the code is entirely visible to the tester. Therefore, it is also known as the glass box or it is known as the white box. Now, whenever we test whenever we apply the structural testing on the internal design, that is on the coding section of the program, so we test all these things, like we test the loops of the procedure. That means by executing all the loops at their boundaries and whether their operational limits, we check the structural testing and we check that all loops they are executing properly or not. Then the second, we check the internal data structures, that is to ensure that the data structure is properly valid or not. So in order to ensure the validity, we check all the internal data structures with the help of this structural testing. Then this structural testing, it also tests all the decision points on their true and false sides, so that it will be easier to apply it to the relatively small programs. And then we check the execution paths. That means it also guarantees that all independent paths that are present within a module, they have been exercised at least one, or they have been executed once or not. So in order to check all the loops inside the internal structure, or in order to check all the internal data structures, all the decision points and all the execution path within a programming code, structural testing is done by the testers, you can say, or by the developers, you can say, because these developers, they know the entire coding and they have the full knowledge of the coding section. So therefore most of the times this structural testing is performed by the software developers. And this structural testing, it requires the internal testing of all the loops, of all the data structures and all the execution path. Let us now discuss the various types of this structural testing methods. The first one is the basis path testing. Basis path testing technique was proposed by Tom McCabe. These tests guarantee to execute every statement in the program at least one time during testing. And basis path testing technique enables the designer for defining a basis set. For example, whatever the program code the designer or the developer have written, or whatever the program code the developers have designed, so they enable the designer for defining a basis set for that particular program. Basis set means that they have created a program flow graph for that particular program, and then this basis set, it is set of all the execution path of a procedure. And after creating that flow graph for the particular program, they calculate the cyclomatic complexity, and on the basis of that they'll be able to define all the execution points. And with the help of this basis path testing, the designers, they are able to guarantee that every statement that is present in the program is executed executed at least one time during the structural testing. So basically we are testing the entire statements that are present in the program, and we are testing that every statement is executed at least once. And these are the basic steps by following which we will be able to do the basis part testing of a particular program. First of all, we draw a control graph for the program that the developer have designed to determine that how many paths are there inside that program. Then after creating that control graph, or you can say the flow graph, we calculate the cyclomatic complexity. This cyclomatic complexity has a particular formula in which we calculate the number of nodes and number of edges, and with the help of these edges and nodes that are present in the program, we'll be able to calculate the cyclomatic complexity. Then on the basis of that, we'll be able to find a basis set of path, and then we generate the test cases that will be used to exercise, or that will be used to execute each path, or you can say every statement that is present inside the program. Let us understand the concept of this basis part testing with this example. For example, this is the flow graph that we have created for the particular program, and in this flow graph you can see that there are 1 to 7 nodes. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 nodes are there, and we have the number of edges equal to 8. So in this flow graph we have 8 number of edges and we have 7 number of nodes, and we'll be able to calculate the how many paths are there between each node. So the path 1 is consisting of node 1 2 3 5 6 and 7. Then we have the second path as node 1 2 4 5 6 and 7, and the third part has only 3 nodes, that is 1 2 6 and 6 to 7. So these are the basic 3 paths that we need to test in order to get the output. So this is how we calculate the number of edges. We calculate the number of nodes and the number of paths that are present inside a flow graph. And this is the formula for the cyclomatic complexity, that is vertex of graph equal to E minus N plus 2, where E is the number of edges that are present in the flow graph and N is the number of nodes that are present in the given flow graph. So with the help of these flow graph, we will be able to calculate the complexity as E means we have how many number of edges? We have 8 number of edges in this flow graph, and we have 7 number of nodes in this flow graph. So like this we calculate the cyclomatic complexity as number of edges minus number of nodes plus 2. So in this flow graph we have number of edges at 8 and number of nodes as 7. So the cyclomatic complexity comes to 1. Now the second method is loop testing, where we exclusively focuses on the validity of all the loop constructs, and these loops, they are simple to test unless there exist some dependencies between them, or there are some other loops inside them, or the code that it is containing. So basically we have 4 classes of loops, like simple loops, nested loops, concatenated loops and unstructured loops. In simple loops we execute only one pass through the loop, or only 2 passes through the loop, and then in the nested loop we start with the innermost loop first, then set all the other loops to minimum value, and after conducting the simple loop test for the innermost loop, we perform the test for the next loop and work outward. So like this we continue until all the loops have been tested. Then in the concatenated loops, we check whether the 2 loops are there independent from each other, then they can be tested by using the simple loop test only. However, if they are 2 concatenated loops, then both the loops, they have to be tested one after the another. After loop testing and basis part testing, we have the third method, that is known as the branch testing. The other synonym for branch testing are conditional testing or decision testing, and this technique makes sure that each possible outcome from the condition is tested at least once. That means in this branch testing, we have the various test cases that are designed to execute all the control flow branches or decision points in a single module or in a single unit, you can say, and all the branches that are present within a single branch, they are tested at least once. So this branch testing has the objective to test every possible option on every control statement, which includes the compound decision, or which includes any decision points in a single module. So we test every single conditional branch, you can say, or every single control flow branches within a single branch. Then the next method is data flow testing. Data flow testing looks at how data moves within a program. It focuses on the points at which variable receives value and the points at which these values are used. It is useful for selecting test path of a program containing nested if and loop statements. So with the help of this data flow testing, we are checking, or we are testing the entire data flow within a program, and we make sure that all defined objects that have been defined inside the program, they have been used at least once, and every data object that has been initialized prior to its use. So all these things, and this data flow testing, it tends to uncover errors like the variables that are used but not initialized, or declared but not used, and so on. So all these things regarding the variables, regarding the data object, whether the object has been defined before using it, or whether the variable has been initialized before using, or when the variable has been declared before using it. So all these things, that how data is flowing inside the program, and what are the various points at which the values are received by these variables and data. So all these things, they are tested inside the data flow testing. Then the next method we have for structural testing is the control flow testing. This control flow testing is a type of structural testing that uses the strategies, or that uses the program's control flow as a model. And these testing techniques are based on judicially selecting a set of test path through the program. That means this type of testing is often used by the developers to test their own code and implementation, and this method is used to test the entire logic of the code, so that the required result can be obtained. So it is very much essential for this type of testing that the entire code and the design and structure of the software have to be known for conducting these types of testing, and for conducting all the program's control flow within the program. Let us discuss now some of the advantages and disadvantages of this structural testing. First, we will consider the advantages. It helps in optimizing the code. It helps in removing extra lines of code which can bring in hidden defects. That means we are removing all the extra lines so that hidden defects can also be removed. Then all the features and functionality within the application can be tested, because we are testing the entire logic and we are testing the internal data structure. So all the functionalities and all the features, they can be tested. Then testing can be started at a very early stage. That means whenever the developers, they start writing codes, at that stage only the structural testing can be initiated. Then the second, we have the disadvantages. Due to the fact that a skilled tester is needed to perform white box testing, the costs are increased, because for conducting these structural testing, we require, or the developers, they have to be or they require a complete knowledge of the entire code. So a proper training is required, and proper skilled technicians or proper skilled developers, they are required for this, and this automatically increases the cost of providing training to the staff or providing training to the developers. Then the second, it is difficult to maintain white box testing as it requires specialized tools like code analyzers and debugging tools. So for conducting these structural testing, we need specialized tools, or you can say specialized testing tools like the code analyzers, which are helped to analyze the complete code, analyze the internal structure of the code, as well as to remove the errors, we require the debugging tools. Now we will discuss the second type of testing, that is what is a functional testing. This functional testing is also known as the black box testing, and this functional testing is a way of checking software to ensure that it has all the required functionality that was specified within its functional requirements. In this software testing, the tester does not know the internal working of the product being tested, and functional testing ensures that the requirements are properly satisfied by the application. So that means this functional testing is in contrast with the structural testing, where in structural testing it was considering the internal structure or internal logic of the entire code, but in this functional testing it deals only with how the application is functioning. So it deals only the functionality of the program, but not the internal structure or not the internal logic of the entire code. And these functional testing, they are also implemented by a team of testers independent of the developers. But in case of that structural testing, it was carried out by the developers, because the developers only know the entire knowledge of the code. But in this functional testing, there is no need to test the internal logic or the internal data structure of the entire code, but only the functionality of the applications. So we can say that in this functional testing, the internal procedures, they are not considered. That is how the input is going on how the code is basis path, or how the control flow is going on inside the path, but only all these things, they are ignored. That is why it is also known as the black box testing, because in black box testing, we are not considered with the internal processing of the program. And the most important role of this functional testing is to validate that the behavior of an application is according to what was specified by the users. So it ensure that all the requirements that were specified by the users, they are properly satisfied by the application or not, or it is the final product is working as per according to the expectations or not. So this is what the entire working of this functional testing is, that it checks only the functionality of the product that has been developed, or functionality of the application, but it does not consider the internal processing and internal procedures of the entire logic or entire code. Now these are the types of errors that are uncovered by this functional testing or the black box testing. The first one is it identifies all the incorrect or missing functions. Then it finds out all the errors in data structure or external database access. Then performance errors, interface errors, and initialization and termination errors. So these are the basic types of the errors that this functional testing uncovers during the black box testing. And because all these things, they are related to the functionality of the application, and without these functions, the application would not be able to run as expected by the customers. Now the testing team, they perform these steps in order to conduct these functional testing. First of all, they identify all the functions that the software is expected to perform, and then they create the input data based on the functions specification. After that, they determine the output based on the functions specification, and then execute the test cases. After that, compare the actual and expected outputs. See, this is the functional testing. It is entirely based on the functionality of the application, and in this testing we are validating that whatever the program or whatever the product is, whether it is performing according to the expectation of the customer or not. So for this, the testing team, they provide the input data for the program, and whatever the output has come out for the after the application, so these outputs, they are compared with the actual outputs, and on the basis of, they'll be able to decide that whether the application is performing according to the user's expectations or not. So basically, this functional testing is dependent upon the whatever the input data we are giving, and whatever the output is coming out of the application programs. We have various, now these are the various techniques or methods that we follow in the functional testing. The first one is the equivalence partitioning. This method divides the input domain of a program into classes of data from which test case can be derived. And these classes are known as equivalence classes, and the process of making equivalence classes is called equivalence partitioning. That means in this equivalence partitioning, we define a particular range of the input field, and whenever we give some input out of that particular range, then that the message will be shown as the error, or that input will be considered as invalid. For example, if we have given a range for providing a input field within a range of 1 to 10, and if we are providing a value 11, then it will be considered as invalid. So in this equivalence partitioning, we are defining the input data into the different equivalence data classes, and we are defining a particular range of that particular input field, and out of any value out of that particular range will be considered as invalid, and an error message will be appear. Then the second method is the boundary value analysis. In boundary value analysis, rather than selecting any element of an equivalence class, focus is on the selection of test cases at the boundaries values. Boundary values include maximum, minimum, just inside or outside boundaries, typical values and error values. So basically this boundary testing is the process of testing between the extreme ends, or you can say the boundaries between the partitions of the input values. Suppose we have given a particular range of the input values. So in this boundary testing we perform the testing at the extreme ends, like we perform at the minimum, just above the minimum, at the normal value, and just below the maximum and maximum value. So these are the limits, you can say, or these are the boundary values, you can say. So in this boundary value we are testing the input values at their minimum, maximum, above minimum, above maximum, and below maximum. Then the next type of this functional testing, we have the cause effect graphing technique. This cause effect graphing technique is a technique that helps in selecting combinations of input conditions in a systematic manner so that number of test cases do not become large, and it provides a concise representation of logical conditions and corresponding actions. That means this cause and effect graph of this black box testing, or you can say the functional testing, it underlines all the relationship between a given result and all the factors that are affecting that particular result. And this cause and effect technique is used to write the dynamic test cases, and it is a technique it is based on the collection of all the requirements that are used to determine the minimum possible test cases which can cover the maximum text area of the particular software. And in this we use certain notations and certain symbols in order to depict the relationship between various results and their input and output conditions. And based on that graph, that means we are creating a kind of a graph, and we are graphically representing all the relationship between the input and output and their result. And based on that graph we create a decision table out of which the test cases will be developed. So this cause and effect graph technique, it has 4 steps. First of all, the causes and effects, that means all the inputs and all the outputs and all the results, they are listed for a module, and basis of that a cause effect graph is developed. That means the relationships between these results and the factors that are influencing these results, that means the input and the output, they are developed as a graphical relationship. Then the graph is converted into a decision table. That means after drawing the graph or after depicting all the input and outputs with graphically, we create a matrix, or we can you can say we create a kind of a table that is known as a decision table. And these decision table, the rules are converted to the test cases, and after converting these graphs into the tables, we develop the various test cases that will be used to test the program using the functional testing. Now let us discuss some of the advantages and disadvantages of this functional testing. First of all, advantages are it is well suited and efficient for large code segments. Code access is not required because we are not considering the internal logic, or we are not considering the entire data structures and how the coding. So we are just considering about the functionality, and we are just concerned about the input and output, just the process and not the internal logics. So clearly separate users perspective from the developer's perspective through visibly defined roles. Then we will discuss the disadvantages. Disadvantage is that it has a limited coverage, since only a selected number of test scenarios is actually performed, so it cannot cover a large amount of code or large amount of code segments. Now, after discussing all these concepts about the functional and structural testing and their various types, you should be able to answer these questions that are frequently asked in the university exams also. So the first one is differentiate between black box and white box testing. In this you have to describe how this functional testing and structural testing, they are different to each other and what are their various features. Then the second is explain why functional testing is also known as black box testing. Describe its various types. In this you have to explain why functional testing is known as black box testing, because we are not considering only the internal structure, we are just considering the application, therefore it is known as the black box testing. And in this question you have to describe the various types also that we have already discussed in the previous slides. So that's all for today. I hope you have understood the concepts of functional and structural testing, and in the next session we will continue with the debugging activities and the maintenance of the software program. Till then, you all take care of yourself, keep learning. Thank you so much for watching.